Welcome back, How to Entrepreneur fam. On today's show, we have Annie Parker. She's she's the leading branding conversion copywriter for Asana, the work management tool. From what I know, just based off LinkedIn alone, she's got at least 15 years experience. So I can say we have a subject matter expert on our hands. Andy, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Did I leave anything out? Anything you want to mention?
No, that was great.
Was the 15 years close? Is that kind of spot on, or is that just the extent of the LinkedIn history for experience?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. It's the extent of my LinkedIn history. I'm actually about 20 plus years, 22 at this point.
Yeah, I figured as much. I left some stuff out on my LinkedIn too. Stuff that just doesn't, you don't want too long a resume.
No longer relevant.
No, exactly. And this is something you went to school for?
No, actually, I earned my master's degree in English. I thought I was going to teach, and that's actually how I started my career.
So you were teaching English?
I was teaching English.
Those are good roots.
Yeah.
I date someone who is an English major, and I feel like I'm constantly paying for it. I'm constantly reminded of how well I don't know my first language. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you're not too hypercritical of people around you, knowing that you're the expert in the room at all times.
Oh, well, I don't think of myself that way, but
no. 20 years experience, I think it would be hard not to, but I'm sure that you at least have a personal definition after 20 years as to what copywriting actually is and isn't. Could you share that with us?
Sure. For me, the work that I do is specifically to sell products. Mm-hmm. I am a company's online salesperson. I just happen to sell with words. That is the core function of what I do. A lot of times people conflate content with copy. I see that happening a lot. And in copywriting communities, there's also a lot of dialogue about this, about whether or not it's fair to call these two things the same. But in general, people tend to separate content from copy, and that content is, the aim is for education and information and not to sell people. And copy, the entire aim is to get people to take some sort of specific action, usually to get into a product, to start a trial, to upgrade, to start a plan, convert to a customer. So things of that nature.
It's like the wind in a funnel. That's just kind of like pushing them in one direction or another.
Yeah, I often think about what I do as simply trying to get people to the next best step. Mm-hmm. So from awareness to consideration to conversion, if you're thinking about a classic funnel.
Okay. And you mentioned that the differentiation between content and, actual copywriting. Now, it sounds like a Venn diagram almost, and there's like some overlay there at some point. Do you think that it's as effective, or not as effective, but maybe something that people should keep in mind when they're writing content if their end goal is, getting a follower, getting a product sold, or maybe not be so obvious about it, kind of soft sell or within content like that? Or is it just more of a, for brand purposing?
Well, it's really for consideration content when people are in that shopping phase. They're in the middle of the funnel and they really want logical, reasons to support their decision making. Because as you know, everybody makes decisions for emotional reasons. But when we get into that phase, when we're actually comparing products, for example, or services, we want logic to support the reasons that we're making that decision. So content really does a lot of that work where it's absent of like the emotional appeals, and it's really much more factual in nature. And a lot of it is also, is written for the purpose of SEO, to drive organic traffic to a site. So, I would say that anyone would tell you, yes, we want our content to inspire people to take further action, but that's not really the ultimate intent of it. It's more about educating people, giving them the information they need to make informed decisions or feel like they're making informed decisions.
Okay, totally. It sounds like there's a lot of psychology at play.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't go too deep into that yet. I actually want to ask you here in a little bit. First, I want to get some of the easy stuff out of the way. um, so, is learning to write copy still? Well, I guess you didn't have such a traditional route. Maybe I should ask exactly how did you cross the bridge from teaching English full time to getting into copywriting?
Yeah, I happened to, after graduating, I happened to be teaching at what was then known as the Colorado Institute of Art. So my joke was that I worked for the CIA. Um,
I had the mug. Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of the disciplines that students were in were like industrial design and graphic design and interior design. And so their work was, there was also like packaging design, and their work was always on display.
Mm-hmm.
And it just led me down this rabbit hole. Like, wait a minute, I love all this packaging. I love the industrial design. Who writes for that?
Yeah.
Who does that? Unfortunately, like when I was in graduate school, the idea was, if you're getting your master's degree in English, you were going to go on and teach. And I just had no idea of all these different writing disciplines that were out there and available to me. And so this is how I kind of stumbled into it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I really like this part of it. I really want to understand what drives people to make decisions, what inspires people when they see, packaging for something like, a bottle of soap, for example. Like, what is it about that they pick it up and they look at it and they're inspired to choose that product over another one on the shelf? And so I just, ended up getting into advertising through that channel, and
Never looked back.
Never looked back. Yeah.
That's awesome. I wouldn't think that would be the time or place for that to happen. You're so caught up in the daily grind, and then you're like, hey, I guess you're inspired by the students or the work around you. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of people's stories that are somewhat similar, because I don't think I know too many people personally with a degree in copywriting. I know that there's like digital marketing masters, and there's that marketing route that people can take in school. But is there a traditional copywriting route?
No, not in like traditional schools, but there are schools like Miami Ad School. And I know a lot of copywriters who come from there, but like the best copywriters I know are actually people who got degrees in marketing.
I believe it.
So yeah, went the traditional route. And
so people either they're coming out of Miami, they have the degrees in marketing, they're English majors, or they're teaching English. It's in one way or another, you guys are all branches of that tree. Prior to investing in it entirely. Now, when you guys are trying to determine whether or not someone that doesn't have those accolades or qualifications can be considered as someone that should be taking the copywriting path or be hired for copywriting, are there any other sorts of lesser school oriented qualifications that kind of raise an eyebrow or reassure you when you go to, or when you consider them a copywriter, or how you go about making that choice?
Well, I think a lot of, in my experience, a lot of companies tend to look at people who also come from journalism backgrounds, because they're interested in people who have the skill in storytelling, because it is an important part of copywriting. It's a different kind of storytelling than you might find in journalism. But I'm also familiar with lots of former journalists who became copywriters. But what I love so much about like this creative work that I do is that people take the most interesting paths to it. There's a great book called Design Thinking and Other Noble Pursuits, and in it the author interviews tons of different creative directors and people who work in advertising and marketing and their route to those jobs. And some of those people were like formerly anthropologists. So a lot of people who study human nature find a way into the world of advertising and copywriting and design. And I think it's fantastic to have all those diverse views.
Okay, so yeah, there's no one route. Everyone's coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you all this because of how much indecision and doubt comes along with business owners and founders when they're trying to start companies, or maybe they have their company down, they got some brand identity, and they're realizing that they're not the best copywriters. They don't come from one of those million different, roads. And they know that their the copy could be better. They just don't know how to do it. So they're trying to outsource, and whether they're going through these independent sites like Upwork and Fiverr, which, I mean, you honestly never know what you get until you have the end product in front of you, and that can be very frustrating, a waste of time and money, or it can end up really good. There are, what are those? What's the word I'm looking for? To making educated deductions based on their ratings and reviews, and just talking to them and knowing that 10% and being able to understand that they understand you and what it is you guys want to do within the company. But now maybe there's some things in the industry like actual work experience that is, highly considered, or maybe you guys wait for them to, or maybe a copywriter is considered skilled, or I think, what is it, like 20,000 hours of doing something makes you a master, maybe X amount of years in the copywriting world, or maybe just the level of position that they've had within copywriting. Like you, for instance, you're a lead. I'm sure that if you were to go somewhere in the future and get hired, having that on your resume is going to be a lot better than saying you were an intern at that company. But yeah, is there sort of a baseline? I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but is there is there a baseline, maybe something that should be considered when trying to hire someone for the long term?
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of different things that you can look at to evaluate copywriters, and like some of those things are in having conversations with people who write copy. Like, what kind of writing have they done? So a skilled copywriter, can work across a lot of different things, and you'll see that in a portfolio. Like they do a lot of email. They can do sales. They can write sales letters. They can write landing pages and web pages. They might also do a lot of long form content, but you can look at the difference between what they do in short form and what they do for long form. You'll see like a really skilled copywriter is someone who writes really good headlines. And it might sound strange to boil it down to that, but a headline is so important, on the homepage of a website or in an ad, whatever, it's such an important element of getting people's attention. And a skilled copywriter knows how to do that. There are questions you can ask in evaluating copywriters to get a better sense of how much they know, how skilled they are. A lot of that is, in asking about approaches, right? A really good copywriter knows a lot about strategy. They know a lot about persuasive tactics, and they can get very specific with you about how they approach different types of writing. There's, the way you write for email is different from the way you write for a landing page. And it's also different based on where your customer is in the funnel. Right. A web page for consideration is different from a web page for conversion. Display and social paid ads like Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, all of these channels there are different approaches you can take to all of these different channels. And again, a skilled copywriter, and particularly freelance copywriters, are really skilled at not only understanding like the different strategies and approaches to writing good copy for these channels, they know a lot about the managing the channel too. This is a particular skill that like a lot of freelance copywriters, copywriter running their own business have to know. So they can tell you about how they think about audiences and segment on platforms like Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, you opened the door on that one as to like how in depth it could, like, from someone on the outside looking in, someone that knows, I don't know. I can't even say that I know copywriting 10%. I don't even know if I'm confident doing it within my own company, but I do know that, you guys are well versed in SEO. You guys know how to work with brand identity. You guys know how to differentiate from product page, email, and social. But it looks like it's really like it's almost a rabbit hole. Like there's no end in sight. And I feel like maybe when you guys go to interview, it's pretty stressful because you just never know what you've got cut out for you.
Well, it's fascinating because when I first started copywriting, it was just brand. It was, brand advertising. It was just trying to attract people to your product or your service and, get their attention, keep their attention, maybe get them, to make a phone call, take advantage of an incentive like a coupon. And now what's so exciting about the profession is that there are so many different ways a copywriter can specialize. So you will find copywriters who do a lot of different things. I mean, there are SEO copywriters who simply specialize in writing content for SEO, but also writing Google AdWords ads, for example, writing the landing pages that those Google AdWords ads direct to. There's conversion copywriters, which is just a pretty wide spectrum of what conversion copywriters do, but it is also kind of a very focused area of copywriting. Brand copywriting is something completely, I think of something as something completely different from that. So there's all these really neat areas where you can specialize. So you might not find someone who can do all of those things, but some of those things really well.
Okay. So I want to run a scenario by you because, I mean, there's a ton of ways to interview someone for the million different positions a copywriter can actually, be hired for. Say we are going for brand and we're looking for someone we're putting up a website. This is a new brand. We think we've got the brand identity down. We know the product. It's let's just say it's health science. So there's facts. There's that that back the proof or the pain points, and there's stuff that's not it's not gray or fuzzy. There's stuff that you can actually use. You could Google it if we don't know it, or you could Google more about it if you needed more inspiration for a copy. But how would I go about interviewing someone, or what are some common questions that I would want to ask? Those questions that you said get brought up.
Yeah, I think one big important question is talking to copywriters about the process they use for just sitting down and writing. Like, how do you think about writing for a homepage? Like, what information do you need on the page, and in what order would you put it? How do you think about something like that? I also ask a lot of questions about how brand copywriters collaborate with designers, because that is a huge part of brand copywriting. Like when you're working on advertising, whether that's a billboard or brochures, if you're a company that's still printing. How are you working together? How are you working together in the digital space with designers, and thinking about the marriage of these two components? That's going to reveal a lot about what kind of copywriter you're getting.
Okay. And does that ever let's say there's expectations of people that are founders or business owners when they get into hiring a copywriter, and they're just assuming that they're going to be able to cover all these bases, and in reality, just like you said, that's usually not the case. When they're doing so, is there ever a time when maybe more of a copywriter is requested than they're capable of, but it's in the job description that they need to know it, and that maybe the copywriter is gonna have to learn how to do this sort of thing if they haven't already done it? Or maybe they just assume that since they have this base knowledge in copywriting that they can get it done somehow? Is that something relevant to the hiring process from the copywriter's perspective?
You might need to expand on that a little for me. I'm not sure I quite get what you're asking.
So there's a million different things under the copywriting umbrella. Say half of them, but the founder of a business needs you to know more. Are you supposed to, or as a copywriter, are you more inclined to say, I don't do that? Or are you more inclined to say, since I have a foundation in copywriting, I can learn how to do that? But
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so you guys are once you have a good foundation for copywriting, it's easier to pick up new skills within copywriting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the skills that uh, I think of conversion copywriters as being like sort of the ultimate generalists, because conversion copywriting is this umbrella for a lot of different things. And a good conversion copywriter has a lot of different skill sets. So they should know how to do brand copywriting, for example, but they should also know how to mine for copy from customers and other types of sources like review sites and things of that nature. They should understand user testing and how to conduct focus groups and things of that nature. They should know how to do research.
I wanted to ask a question about that actually. Say they don't know much about the product and the founder only knows so much, or the business owner only knows so much, and it's not the inspiration that they need, or it's not what they would ideally want on the front page. Like say you're selling vitamin C gummies or something. You're not going to put, vitamin C, it's in orange juice, you should drink it. And that's all the founder knows. So the copywriters are actually, they're capable or not, I guess they're going to have to at some point do research. And is that involved with like scholarly articles as well as the, Britannica part of a library, or how in-depth and how intensive does that get?
Well, of course, you want your copywriter to understand your product, but really what they should understand better is your customer.
Okay.
Because that's who they're writing for. And so a lot of the research that, for example, that I do day in and day out is really about who my customer is, what pains them, what problems they're trying to solve, what motivates them, what desires they have. But of course, I also need to understand the product I'm selling so that when I write about features, if that's what I'm doing, I can do that successfully. But the nice thing about, of course, being an in-house copywriter is that I have product partners I can rely on to help me understand if I'm not communicating accurately about a product.
Maybe the guy in R&D, he's probably pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said the guys with the know-how. So, exactly. The entrepreneur doesn't usually know what he's doing anyways. You can't ask the guy with the product what it does, but no, I totally understand that. And you mentioned earlier there's like a psychological approach to thing, and that probably is what you were referring to when you said understanding your customer, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, I'm fond of telling people that copywriting is the science of persuasion. There's a bit of art to it, but mostly it's the science of persuasion. It's the science of understanding how to appeal to people's emotions. It's the science of understanding why people make decisions to buy and why they don't. And those are the things that a skilled copywriter understands a lot about. And sometimes it's not just copywriting, it's also design. Like what are the design elements that trigger people to think about buying, to convert? So there's a lot that goes into the psychology, and a lot of it is about approach too, right? Like, if I'm writing, for example, a series of emails to onboard new customers, what's the right approach to take? Do I start with appealing to their ego? Or do I start by showing them something that's really easy to do in the product? Or do I start by trying to pitch them with the product right away, for example? Do I start with social proof? These are things that a copywriter knows. They know, they understand what's going to work and when, and how to use that to get people to the next step.
Okay. So, yeah, I couldn't only imagine the amount of approaches that there is. I mean, starting with the pain point, asking someone, does their back hurt? Hey, we sell aspirin. That probably goes a long way. Knowing how to use those sort of tools, or just that same weapon in 1,000 different ways, it's like a Swiss Army knife almost.
Yeah, whenever I start writing a writing project, I'm thinking just about my customer. I'm thinking about their pain. I'm thinking about what motivates them. I'm thinking about what sort of appeal I can use to get their attention, to engage them, to keep their attention, to convince, persuade them to act. So yeah, I think about cognitive biases. You've heard a lot about FOMO, for example,
Oh, yeah.
and creating a sense of urgency. And again, a skilled copywriter knows when to use this, when it works, when it doesn't work, how it works well. All of that is, just a combination of experience and failure. To be honest, like as you learn copywriting, you will have a lot of failures, but those failures are really important. They really shape your understanding of what works when and why.
Okay, so maybe I can talk shop with you for a minute because you brought up, homepages, emails, content. What are some good strategies that you use for, let's say, email, for instance, header and then the preview text? Is there anything in there that's sort of a staple tactic for you that you like to think about or use, or when you're actually writing them?
Well, a really good example for something that works with email is with subject lines. That what's proven to work to get people's attention is a subject line that often begins with a number. 3 ways to work faster, 5 ways to do something else. There's also tactics like creating a curiosity gap. There are a lot of studies and proof to show that using words like the secret to losing weight quickly. These are things that, tactics that get people's attention. And the interesting thing too, to just back up a little and talk about numbers, is like when you learn about the psychology too, one of the fascinating things about like starting subject lines with a number is that it's usually odd numbers that do better.
Oh,
So
really?
3 ways to do something, 5 ways to do something, 10 is a number that works, 15 ways, right? Whereas 4 and 6 and 8 don't seem to engage people as much.
If I'm laughing because I feel like if I saw a list with only 4 things on it, or there's the top 4 secrets, like, oh, okay, that's cool. But why is it not 5? Yeah, that's funny. That does it rings as like subconscious bell. It's a very psychological thing, and I don't understand it, which is why I open the emails. Yeah, it makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
Gotcha.
Um, have you ever, this is something I literally just stumbled across recently. I had received, I'm on a newsletter, I got an email, and I just saw in big, or it was all lowercase, bold text. It just said, "How dare you?" And I read it, and I'm like, just casually relaxing. And when it came through, I ended, it's like, that's very strange. There's no preview text, that registered immediately. And I was like, and it's written like a text message. And I just clicked on it. Do you guys ever take, is there like a personable or like, that was kind of clickbaity, I guess. I mean, in a sense, it was clickbaity, but I clicked on it. Are there any clickbaity things that you got that are a little less shameful, I guess? Because I feel like "How dare you" isn't like, it's not saying there's free money in the subject, but at the same time, it's going to get opened.
Well, I don't know. I think whether or not you describe it as clickbaity kind of depends on the content
Mm-hmm.
that follows it. But really, a big part of what a copywriter is trying to do with email subject lines is stand out in your inbox, right? Because like a lot of people, you're probably getting hundreds of emails a day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're filtering through them, right? You read those subject lines in a snap, and you make very quick decisions about which ones you're going to read and which ones you're just going to throw away. And so that subject line, it's working like a teaser. And that's another approach you can take to writing subject lines, is how can I tease my,
Oh yeah, it worked.
yeah,
Yeah,
it worked.
110%. And I didn't consider it clickbait because I like the newsletter, and I probably wouldn't have opened it had it not stood out in the inbox. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And I want to ask you another shop question. This is a little broader, I feel like, but maybe there's some general way to sum it up for homepages. Now, when someone's trying to put together that perfect, this is our brand, this is who we are, this is, here are our pain points, and, here's our offer at the bottom. Is there a common structure that you guys normally go through? Maybe it's like a chronological playbook, or maybe there's like a 1, 2, 3 that gets reused and recycled when it comes to building a company's homepage?
Yeah, there are several things that I think about. I mean, definitely, like I don't start writing right away, right?
Mhm.
Let's assume I know who my customer is. I know who the one person I'm writing for is, and that's another very particular tactic, right? When you are writing copy, you should be writing for one person.
Okay.
They're your ideal customer. They're a representation of your target audience, but you really want to narrow in and practice this idea of writing for one person. So I want, let's assume I know that. The next thing I'm really going to work on is building out an architecture, a messaging architecture. Like, what is it that I want to say to this person and in what order? And to do that, I will think about the questions that my prospect is going to ask, right? So they land on the page, and what's the first thing I need to do? I need to orient them, right? What do you do? What is this, right? I've landed on some software company, or I've landed on, an online, uh,
Yeah.
photo retailer, right?
Mhm.
I need to immediately orient my um, customer based on what I believe their stage of awareness is. Like, how much do they know about us? Um, a company like Nike, maybe, for example, doesn't need to do that because everybody knows who Nike is. But if you're a new company, you got to help people understand who you are, what you do. So a hero, I often think about, like, the hero section of a homepage is to really match my visitor's stage of awareness and help them understand um, what we are, what this service is, what this product is. From there, it's like, what are the questions that a prospect is asking? They might say, okay, I've read this headline and I understand more about who you are. Why should I trust you? And so I'll think about ways that we can help build trust with the visitor. Okay, great. I feel like I can trust you a little bit more. Now, tell me, like, can you do what you say you can do?
Mhm.
And then the process of sort of dividing, well, what is it that we do, and how do we prove to this person that we can do those things? Um, like, proof is the most important thing, right? It's great to make claims about what you can do, like, oh, this vitamin will give you beautiful skin, but you have to prove that. Um, and so I go through that sort of process, and then land on, okay, um, as your visitor, all right, I understand what you do. I understand what's in it for me. I have a better sense of what your claims are. You've shown me some proof. Now, what should I do? And as a copywriter, I'm going to say, here's the next step for you to take. And, that's whatever the offer is on the
Yeah,
page.
getting them in the cart.
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned when you were teaching at the art school, was it packaging, product packaging? Is that what you initially got your feet wet in?
No, when I started, it was mostly print, like print brochures,
Mhm.
out of home work. I did later get into packaging, but not until like 2011.
So I'm
Uh,
kind of curious about that. So I know. Are you familiar with Care of? They're like the customizable vitamin. They ship it to your house brand.
no, I'm not.
Okay, well, they're pretty cool. I would check them out. Just their aesthetic and stuff. Really, they have some good copy.
Mm.
They're like on their packaging, for instance. I've never ordered it, but I've seen it, and I can appreciate it. And it's like within a packaging, within or on a box. Maybe I'll have something quirky, smart, fun, whatever the case may be, copy wise. Uh,
Mhm.
so when you open their box, it says "Take it personally," and
Mm.
so when you're writing copy for packaging and products or product packaging, are you guys looking to like make that little slogan that's funny and embodies the brand maybe and sort of tells them what to do or what to look forward to? Is there something that a guideline that you stick to when you're selling things via the product packaging copy?
Well, for me, it depends on whether that product is being delivered on through the mail, like what you're describing, or if
Mhm.
it's something people are picking up in store. I mean, sometimes it's obviously a combination of both, but today there are a lot of services that are strictly online. So that would be a question I'd want to ask right away, because there's a huge difference for people in being able to physically pick up a product and read the packaging in a store, right? And the truth is, most people make a decision at that point of sale, right? They pick it up. They have a tangible physical response to the product. They can read copy, and if it is sort of quirky, funny, that might compel them to, it creates a good feeling, and they're like, yes. They associate that feeling immediately with the product, with the feeling they want to have. They put the product in their basket, and they go to the cashier.
Mhm.
Online is different, right? So online product packaging is not going to have that same
Yeah, no, the power.
effect.
Yeah.
So when I read about a product that I'm buying online and then I get it at home and I get that kind of same sort of fun, humorous copy, what it does is at that point is it's creating a sense of brand loyalty. It's still appealing to emotion, but it's appealing to it after the sale, right? And it's just helping me to establish this brand in my memory as something that makes me feel really good, so that I will return and make another purchase.
Yeah, very nice. And I guess that can be misconstrued when someone says product packaging. That could be like the bottle or something comes in, or the box that the bottle comes in the mail. Um,
Right, right.
that leads me to another question. Product packaging department. So on the back of bottles or like shampoos or whatever the case may be, or I'm assuming anything at this point, there's usually a little spiel about um, this is our company. We made this with love, care, blood, sweat, and tears. It does this for you. Is there ever a structure that should be identified, or is there a structure that's identified within the copywriting community for people that do product packaging? Sort of like, A, talk about the company, B, talk about the product, and then C, sort of leave them with whatever it is that's going to make them come back again. Like, words of compelling words of wonderment, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think it depends entirely on the product. It depends on the company. If that's, copywriters can make a lot of great cases for not putting all of that information on a package, but ultimately sometimes those decisions are out of the hands of the copywriter. But I would say that really what's most important is always writing that sort of copy with the goal in mind of how the product serves the customer. So whether you're talking about a company or you're talking specifically about the product, or you always make sure that the customer is at the center of that. But sometimes companies come back and I mean, this has happened to me before. We're like, oh no, we want this information about who we are and what we do on the package, no matter what. And that's the way it goes.
Awesome. Have you had a chance with? I know SMS is getting pretty popular. Have you gotten involved in that at all? Are there strategies that are, I don't know, being developed? I mean, I know it's still kind of new.
Yeah, I did some SMS about 5 years ago. So I haven't touched it since. And I honestly don't really remember how, like what my approach was to that. I mean, I put into play some of the things that I always would put into play. Like, I have a very limited amount of space. I've got to do something that's going to
Yeah.
grab people's attention. And with what I was doing at the time, it was really all about a sale that was ending. So that was a situation where I would always lean into the urgency or FOMO to very quickly get at get at the message that it was trying to deliver.
Yeah, that seems like a good reason or time to send an SMS. I feel like with all the SMS that I've been getting, just this year alone, I know that it's ramped up quite a bit. Are you familiar with the brand CB2?
I can't say that I am.
Yeah, they're a furniture brand, and they always have sales. Every day, something else is on sale. Like, it's literally every day. But the thing is as bombarding as it can be, and it seems, which it is. I don't mind it because I really like the brand and I really like the furniture, and you never know when something's going to be affordable. So you don't mind those things, but um, I don't know. I was going to ask if what your thoughts were on the subject. Do you think that being SMS, just getting a text in general, like if it's not from someone that you want to talk to right then and there, maybe you'll put it off for later, and then maybe you'll forget about it. Do you think that maybe SMS, based on what you've experienced in the millions of other ways you've gone about copywriting, might be more successful for founders and business owners to keep it short and sweet, or maybe just when they can introduce FOMO, or are there ideal times for them to use it?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, again, it depends on what what you're selling, what your objectives are. And expenses. I mean, the question is if SMS is more expensive. Certainly for companies in selling commodities, SMS is a great way to reach people. I know that like sometimes when I get them and it says, end soon, I am immediately like, wait, what? What's ending soon? Oh God. And usually it's about a sale. But what I would say is that the one area that's really important for all businesses is email, because essentially every business is an email business, right?
Very
It's inexpensive. It's it's a great way to segment your users, make sure they're getting seeing relevant messages, targeting specifically their needs, and as I said, you want someone who understands that how to get people to act using email, how to write subject lines that get people to open. So I would say that that's like one really particularly important area for every entrepreneur to really think about.
So are there certain things you like to do during onboarding emails? Maybe someone finally gives you their email and you send that first one in response. Do you just welcome them to the brand, or welcome them to the family, or are you already dishing out coupons? What's the right way to go about that?
Well, here again too, it just depends on what you're onboarding to. For me, when it comes to, for example, software, which is what I do now, is I think about like, how do I get people to the aha moments as quickly as I can? Like it's a classic problem with a lot of software, right? It's like people think, oh, this is really interesting, and they sign up for a free trial, but then they just churn out. They never use it. It's too overwhelming. There's too much to learn or to know, to figure out right away, and so they just never get on board.
Yeah, it's a whole deal.
Yeah. So that's very different. I mean, like certainly when people sign up for a trial, most companies, the first thing they do is, like a welcome letter from the CEO. That is a good standard, or some kind of welcome letter. It's absolutely a great tactic.
Okay. What about, I know that some of the more important ones considered are like the post-purchase segmenting. Do you have any suggestions as to what's worked based on what's worked for you? Maybe it's a series of emails, maybe it's just one, and maybe what's inside those emails?
Yeah. Really the way I think about it, at that point is like, how do I show people that this is something they absolutely can't live without? And I might divvy that up into a series of emails, and each email shows them something specific about the product and what they're going to get from it, and what it will help them do and how it will improve their life.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you're actually improving my life to a point where I, can recognize it, I'm there.
Yep, that's the idea.
And let's see now. So we have post-purchase, we have onboarding. What do you consider, I don't know, just as important when it comes to copy and email segment? Like, what are some others?
Well, I think it's, particularly important to use email to, it's a great way to segment your customer audience, so that you are always sending relevant messages to people. The last thing you want to do is blast one email to your entire customer audience, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not going to be relevant for everyone. So email is a great way to determine, um, you know, what's what messages to send to whom. Essentially, you can use it to really figure out who your audience is and what they like, and what's important to them, and to just always make sure that whenever you send an email, you have a very specific segmented audience.
Yeah, totally get that. And with that being said, is it on the copywriter ever to actually do testing, like via, questioning those specific audiences, maybe to get, feedback on a product, or maybe they're just looking to, I don't know, they're looking to take some sort of poll for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, again, I think for me, because I'm an in-house copywriter and have been for such a long time, I have partners that I've always been able to rely on to, help construct those things. And I focus more on what are the questions we need to ask to like get that information from somebody. Or how do we even set up an email about a survey, for example, to get people to participate in it?
Mhm.
So this is where I absolutely lean into the freelance copywriter. Again, someone who runs their own copywriting business, because they do need to know this. And they're usually very, very good at it. Like when do we run surveys? How do we run surveys? What kinds of questions do we ask? A lot of surveys are like churn surveys, right? When your customers churn out of a product, you want to ask them for a couple minutes to find out why.
Yeah.
Because then those are objections that they had to the product that you can find ways to overcome with new customers. But there are all kinds of surveys that you can do, and freelance copywriters they have to know so much more than a copywriter like me in order to run a successful company. So I really want to elevate the work that they do.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, you guys, it sounds like you're capable of getting the job done when it comes to, what is actually going to get these people to take the survey, make this survey purposeful and get customer feedback for those, big company objectives too. And that's actually what I was getting at. Because that sort of feedback that could change an entire product, and sometimes it changes our brand's identity. It's just at the avatar, like you realize you're in the wrong business, or you're looking at the wrong people, the wrong target audience, and it's
Yeah.
thanks to those surveys. Cool. So,
Yeah.
You being an in-house copywriter and there being freelancers, in just about every area or every nook and cranny of the world, is there anywhere that everyone is all at one time? Maybe online, a community, a Facebook group. Maybe there's a platform specifically that gets engaged.
Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of really great freelance writers on LinkedIn, making connections, and posting repeatedly. And there are a lot who have been wildly successful. I'm sure there are Facebook groups too. I haven't really ever looked into those Facebook groups, but I know that they exist. So they're there. But for me, like a lot of the content I like to get served actually comes to me on LinkedIn from freelance copywriters.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't even think about it. You can probably actually see a lot of freelancers' actual work on their feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those freelance copywriters, as part of trying to build their businesses, share a lot of information
Oh,
on
that's
LinkedIn.
awesome.
So it's a great resource for anyone who wants to learn more about copywriting.
Okay. And is there anyone that you follow in the copywriting world, a newsletter you might get, or a company that just has like super, super awesome copy that you like to follow?
Yeah, well, one of my favorites, highly recommend, is Very Good Copy,
Mhm.
the newsletter. Um, I am a huge fan of Copy Hackers, which that you can go to copyhackers.com, and their conversion copywriting specialists. I get their newsletter. Um, uh, CXL, I want to say that stands for Conversion Institute. Another great source. So cxl.com, another great source of information about conversion copywriting. I have a lot of, copywriters that I enjoy following who work freelance. Justin Blackman, who is he's just so ridiculously funny, and his newsletters are really enjoyable. And in each newsletter, he is actually demonstrating. He's talking about something specific, but he's always demonstrating the value of copywriting. That's also true of every newsletter I get from Copy Hackers. Leanna Patch is another freelance copywriter I really enjoy. I think that about...
That's the 10 right there.
Yeah, there's quite a few. And then, like I said, LinkedIn, I see a lot of different posts on LinkedIn, and I find people to follow. It's especially fun for me to follow copywriters out of the UK and Australia, and it helps to
get cultured.
Yeah, build your understanding of copywriting within that culture.
That's awesome. And so where does Andy go when Andy needs questions answered? Is there any one place you turn to in particular? Maybe there's, I don't know, books that get published by a certain company, or maybe there's an online resource.
Yeah, well, I would say that I have a tremendous number of books at home, and sometimes I will go back through those. And over the last 20 years, what I've been doing is, like, I just take a ton of notes when I read an article that I find especially helpful. And what I've created for myself is this digital repository.
Google Drive.
Information. And I often refer to that. So it's like this giant collection of best practices from all sorts of resources that I have turned to over the years.
That's awesome. I have one of those for just running a business. The million different things. Every time I talk to someone, like this conversation, for instance, there's going to be things I take from it and end up in that repository.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. And how can people get a hold of you? How can they find you, reach out, or follow?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and, Andy Lynn Parker, Andy L. Parker. That's my full name. And I'm on Twitter. My handle is Andy Said What Now. Cool. I can't say that I'm too terribly active. Active on Twitter. I tend to read more than I tweet.
Same way.
But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show today. It's been super insightful. I really appreciate you sharing more about the less known and never-ending world of copywriting.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, and very much my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks.